Okay, great. Wonderful. Well, thanks for everyone's patience. So we'll go ahead and get started. So to start, I want to thank HHS for inviting us here today. We've had a really great time over the last 24 hours. My name is Taylor Corbett. Today I'm joined by my colleagues, Dylan, Kelsey, and Will. We're all data scientists and software engineers from a company called Visionist, which is an IT and analytical services company based up in Columbia, Maryland. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're in the prevention track. And so we really sort of started at the hackathon by asking ourselves, if we wanted to have an impact on individuals and preventing them from even developing an opioid addiction in the first place, where would we start? And so we looked at CDC data and we found that individuals really aren't obtaining, or who abuse opioids, aren't obtaining them from drug dealers. The majority of them are obtaining them from their families. Over 70% of individuals that abuse opioids obtain them or borrow them or steal them from their families. And so our hypothesis was, are individuals getting these meds because they're sort of left over after an operation or something like that? And so what could we do, or what sort of intervention could we help promote that would get those meds out of circulation? And so we ended up looking into drug take-back programs, right? So these are programs that are either sponsored at a pharmacy or at a specific sort of drug take-back location. And we asked ourselves two questions. How can we help the public access the existing sort of drug take-back platforms and organizations that are out there? And how can we help public health practitioners prioritize and find areas for new investment if they were sort of interested in sort of expanding these programs? And so who was our end users? Well, we had the public health practitioners and prescription users. If we had a little bit more time, we could have made it a national platform, but given 24 hours, we were able to make it a regional platform focused on 5 states that were sort of the most hard hit. So with that, let's go ahead and we can go to the platform. So this is the platform that we're calling Take Back America. All right, and so it's the tool that we developed over the last 24 hours. And so we're going to walk through the features. So to start, what you're looking at is a risk index for opioids that we developed using sort of a number of different sort of multivariate methods. If you zoom in, other way, we can zoom in sort of on areas of interest that sort of represent areas that are the highest hit. So again, this is a composite measure for risk. If we click on a given area, we can select, and information will come up on the right-hand side showing sort of how we are able to calculate that risk measure. So we can see that measures of vulnerability, current conditions, expected conditions, and mitigating factors went into that. We can also look at the DPR measure. So this is sort of the drop box location to prescription ratio that we came up with. So ultimately, low values on this map show areas where you have high concentration of prescriptions but low availability of this sort of take-back program. And this is sort of proven if we actually go back and turn on the current places where there are take-back locations throughout the area. So this is a really sort of powerful application that we think can be used by both public health practitioners and the public. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Cool. So, what differentiates our solution? Well, this is one of the first sort of large-scale public data sets of its kind. We looked on DEA, and DEA had some sort of partner data, but we pulled in data from a variety of different both public and private sources, including like Walgreens, CVS, as well as some private drug drop companies. In addition, the interface is easily displayed. It's a nice visual user interface. It's built using React, which is an open source technology, which means it's highly customizable and we can add in new features. In addition, it facilitates the implementation of sort of high ROI investments, right, for public health practitioners. They can easily identify areas that are in need. In terms of what data sets we used, we used a number that were provided by HHS, including CDC Wonder, some of the CDC prescribing rates, but then we also pulled in all those sort of external data sets. And so finally, let's talk about design. Right, so what are sort of the key factors that went into designing this solution as a team? Well, again, at the start, we sort of defined our goal as increasing the participation and availability of these take-back programs. We identified 2 different types of users, being public health practitioners and prescription users. And so what were sort of the types of things that we tried to integrate as we designed this solution? Well, the first is making positive pathways clear, right, for both prescription users and public health practitioners, making it very clear, if you have a prescription but you want to return it or sort of exchange it in, we sort of reduce that burden that you have to go through to try to find locations that are close to you where you could turn it in. For public health practitioners, it's very clear now where they need to make those investments. And again, this sort of eliminates that seductive alternative of doing nothing, of keeping those meds around the house where they're at risk. And then finally, it's informed by real users. These are all things that we've sort of encountered in our communities and among our families, and so we sort of baked that into the tool as we built it. So with that, thank you.
Quick question. Did the data show or suggest that take-back programs are effective in reducing opioid deaths or anything of that nature?
Certainly, when you look at the correlation, you see that there are areas where there are not take-back programs seem to have a higher incidence of opioid abuse. But then when we sort of threw that into a regression and started looking at some of the different factors, it gets more complicated to sort of tease that out. So it was still significant, but not as much as you would have expected if you just sort of looked at the plots on their own.
Thanks.
So here we are as we go to the winners.
Okay. Do you want to do it? Okay. So for the prevention track, Visionist is the winner. I know. And the prevention track is sponsored by our partners at Tableau. So if they would like to come up here.
All right, let's, hold on, we got to do a, get in here, Moda. Actually, let's turn around, let's get them in the back.
Oh, and our partners at Tableau. Please come on up.
Come on up.
Yeah. These are the people you're going to get the prize from. So.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, this way.
We get in the middle. Come on. Squeeze in.
We're not getting everybody.
Okay. All right. Oh, hold on. Now we'll get a real picture. All right. Thank you guys very much. Thank you.
For the treatment track,